All right. I remember when I was a kid, I loved a video game called Harvest Moon. I had it on Game Boy. It was a Nintendo game, and I had it on GameCube as well. And I played it on GameCube every day. Spent so much of my time playing Harvest Moon, and what I loved about it was that you're this character that's a farmer in this town. You're like a new farmer in the town, and I just love like the simulation of it. You get to meet people, start a family, boop, boop, boop. And the funniest thing is that game really inspired me. I was a little kid, and I got influenced easily by the video games that I played, even though my mom never wanted me to play those video games. And it made me want to be a farmer. I remember I say, Mom, I want to own a farm one day. And she laughed. And I'd ask her, I'm like, hey, is there any stories? Didn't you have a farm back in Ghana? And she's like, what? I'm like, no, I want to be a farmer so badly. And so I looked into agriculture. I drive by farms. We lived across this place called Experimental Farm in Ottawa. And my mom just laughed at me, and soon it just drifted away. And it drifted away from my thoughts because when I look back, that was never my calling. That was never my true purpose, being a farmer. It was just something that I thought was fun, or it was okay for that moment. But I genuinely believe, though, looking forward and looking at where I am now, I think each one of us has a calling and a greater purpose. But sometimes to get there, that's the hard part, because it requires each one of us to take a really big step. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm your host, Ben Amoa, and this is a podcast about real stories and real perspectives from real people. Today we have with us Lyle Notice, the youth director in the Alberta Seventh-day Adventist Conference, and he'll be sharing with us his perspective on what a calling is.
All right, yo, what up, everybody? This is Lyle Milton Notice the First, representing the 6 Scarborough. Done know. Currently, right now, I'm serving as the youth director of the Alberta Conference, and so yeah, we're out here. I've been out here since 2012. Yeah, so that's what I'm about.
Yeah, and Pastor Lyle here. He loves social media. Always on social media. He's always doing a big thing. And this man's recently dropped some diss video of me beating me in some arm wrestle. It's public. If you go on his Facebook, you can find it. And I'm telling you, it's the most corrupt video ever, because you can see I'm not even breaking a sweat. You can see the whole Niagara Falls coming from this man's forehead while he's trying to take me on. But everyone is repping him in this video on these comments. I'm thankful it's not on my wall anymore. I can't have people that know me know that.
Wait, hold on. It's not on your wall, bro?
I had to take this thing down. I think I untagged myself.
You untagged or you took it down?
I don't know. I think I untagged myself or something, because my mom commented, "Oh, my poor baby." I thought that was disrespectful. I thought that was offensive. I think it was like a one-sided, like very skewed video that you posted, and like I don't like looking weak in front of all these people. I was supposed to try and minister to people, and this is what I'm looking like.
Yo, man, you gotta always stay ready in these streets, man. You know the ops is always out. Yo, you stay steady taking these L's, man.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna get to the business. So you've been pastor. You used to pastor. Now you're the youth director. What do you think makes you unique? What's your thing, I guess, in the church, in the ministry? Like, how do people know, like, oh, that's Lyle. This is Lyle's thing.
I think for me, I've always just been myself, regardless of the role that I've had, and I think regardless of how I was supposed to act or look being in the role that I am, I always kept it 100. I always kept it G. I love fashion. I love social media. I love technology. And so when you see me, that's what you see. That's what you get. So I think when people think of Pastor Lyle, they just say, yeah, that's Pastor Lyle. He has his own style, his own swag. He does things according to how he wants to do them. And I think that's important for me. They always say that you're always your best when you're yourself. Mm-hmm. And so like right now I'm rocking Yeezys, I'm rocking Palace, which is a underground streetwear brand out of London, but I'm not trying to stunt or show off, or I'm not trying to just be a hype beast, but legit, I like this is what I'm about. And so I'm a firm believer in, even if you're a pastor, even if you're in ministry, you still need to be yourself. You know, so many times we're trying to be so many other things and so many other people. And I hope the message that I've tried to get across with my life and ministry is always be you, man. Be true to you.
Be yourself.
Be yourself. Keep it 1,000, man. And I think you're able to reach more people that way.
And like, you're a youth director, so you're kind of responsible of all the youth in all of Alberta and inside of a province. That's many people. I don't even know if you guys have a number for that, but that's like constantly growing. And it's a big responsibility.
It is.
Because people look at kids, they're like, you know, like, you guys are the future. And then we hear, though, today, like, we know for a fact, like, they're the present. They're the current influencers of the church. What motivates you for this big responsibility? What keeps you going in this job to serve all these young people, to mold them, to set a way for them to have a purpose in this church today?
That's a very good question. I realize that, you know, the higher you get in church leadership, sometimes the further away you get from real life and ministry, because you're far removed. You spend a lot of time in meetings, on committees and boards, and the more time you spend in these meetings, sometimes you get further away from the people, from the streets, if I could say that, from the ground. And so every day when I get up, it's like, yes, I have a huge responsibility. And there's times I'm like, man, maybe I should be doing something else. But God reminds me that, Lyle, I need a unique person who still keeps it 1,000, who's still close and connected to the streets and to the culture, in that level of position of leadership, so that I could sort of bridge the gap between what's out there on the streets and what the young culture is about, but yet, you know, have an impact and have the resources to take leadership to impact these same young people. So it's like, I see myself as like a go-between. You know, I'm at that higher level of leadership, and I need to do what I got to do administratively. And a lot of times I'm giving insight to the older folk about what this generation's about. But the reverse is now, okay, I have to also minister to the young people and give them guidance and leadership. And it's just like this careful dance between two different worlds sometimes, you know, a leadership role in the conference, but yet the real world with young people. And I keep thinking, if I'm not there with the perspective, the unique perspective that I have, then, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm the only dude who could do it, but I think that in this time and for this generation, I kind of see myself as a voice for this generation.
Do you feel called that you're supposed to be doing this?
Yeah. I mean, I love business. I love entrepreneurship. I love investing, and there's a lot of other things. I love motivational speaking. There's a lot of other things that I could be doing, but I really feel that God has called me to this role for such a time as this. You know what I mean? To give a voice, to give leadership, to give perspective. I'm still quite fairly young, you know, and I still somewhat get it. In the next couple of years, maybe it'll be time for me to transition, but I think for right now, I think that I'm called to this ministry.
So this episode's about a calling, or knowing that you're called. Like, what affirms a calling for you? Like, every day, how do you know, or do you remind yourself every day, or like often, that you're called? Like, how do you know that you're called to do something?
That's a good question. You know, for me, spiritually, I have a routine that I do in the morning, and I literally wake up and I I'm in my shower and the lights are off. This might sound strange, but I sort of meditate when the hot water's just running, and I sit in my tub and I'm listening for what God is saying to me. And I have to start my day that way. If not, like, things just don't really work out. But it's almost like every morning he whispers to me somehow, some way, Lyle, I have a purpose for you still, you know. So the calling is connected to God. I didn't call myself, you know. I'd probably be doing 1,000 different things, but God just gently reminds me every day that I have you here for a purpose. And so the call is connected very much to God and my spiritual life and my relationship. Very soon he might call me to something else, you know, to a different type of role. But for now, every day I just get gentle reminders that, hey, yo, you know, Lyle, you're You're here for a purpose. You're here to model. You're here to mentor. You're here to literally be an example for this younger generation.
So what would you tell someone today, like if they feel convicted of a calling, or they're struggling doing something even though they feel called to do something? Like, what advice would you give someone that is struggling with the call, or feels called or convicted of a call?
I think what I would tell them is, man, if you feel a calling usually comes at some sort of internal conflict. You know, there's something that it could be a crucible, it could be something conflicting that is propelling you towards a certain direction, and you're like, man, should I do this? Should I not do this? I'm not sure. Usually, maybe that's a sign that maybe God's doing something, because if it were for yourself, you'd probably take the easy road. But to take a risk and to try it and to allow God to lead, because at the end of the day, we're not leading ourselves. The calling is something that God gives, and so if He's calling you, there's probably going to be some sort of internal struggle. There's going to be fear, but you step out in faith, you take that risk, and I feel like God does the rest. You have to be willing to answer the call. So that's what I would say. If you kind of feel something, pray about it, ask God to lead you, because God is always speaking. He's always speaking to us. And so I'm just saying, if you have just the ounce, just a little bit of, you're thinking, man, maybe I might be called to something, explore it, pray about it, let God lead. And I think He'll reveal Himself, and He'll open up doors, and He'll close other doors. And you just know. A calling is a calling that you can't run from. It's almost like Jonah, man. You can try, but you will never be as happy and fulfilled, and life won't be as meaningful if you don't follow that call.
And do you think, let's just wrapping up, do you think a calling will last forever? Like, will there be a time where, like, God will be like, I'll use someone else?
That's a good question, man. I think that a calling is like a vocation. It could be for a lifetime, but there might be different assignments that God has for you. So the assignment may change, but I don't think like He calls you today and then tomorrow you're not called. I do think that He calls you for a purpose and for a time, but your assignment may change in that calling. For example, when I was called to ministry, I went to Ottawa. I pastored for a couple years, and then my assignment changed to youth director, but the calling still stands. So you might have different assignments, different jobs, but you're called to ministry, and ministry takes on different forms and different facets. Yeah. I do think it's a, and maybe, who knows? I think at the end of the day, only God knows how long He calls you for or what He calls you to. But He does call people, and He is calling people even in this day and age. And so just be prepared to listen out, hear His call, and if He calls you, man, answer. Because what I'd like to leave you with is, I never would have ever guessed that I would be living the life I'm living now. If you talked to me 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I never would have expected this. But God had a greater plan. And so when you follow His plan, it's always greater than you could ever imagine. My next assignment may be very different, but I'm just excited because I know that I could never ever imagine this. So what about the next level? The next level is probably going to be like twice as amazing. Yeah. But you've got to stay faithful to the call that God has called you to.
Faithful to the call. Thanks so much, Pastor Lyle.
Yeah.
And that's Pastor Lyle Notice. Follow him on his social media, on his IG at Lyle Notice, at LYLE Notice. Thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of The Auricle. Stay tuned for the next one. Remember, everybody you meet, everyone you pass by has a story. Thanks again.